Hey everybody. I was just out here working and I listened to this Manly Hall clip and I really wanted to share it with everybody. So I'm not going to sit and mumble about it. I'm just going to go ahead and play it and come back in a few minutes when it's over and maybe discuss it really quick. I actually made a video right before this of the same clip, but I cut it off too short. I want to keep playing it, so here it goes.
Well, another problem that happens that I think is very much in Western religions especially is that the individual who is dedicated nearly always takes on a deadly seriousness. We haven't discovered, apparently, the dance of life. We haven't discovered perhaps what some of the older people who were not so smart in some things really discovered, namely that after all, growth is the most joyous process that there is. To grow in wisdom is a magnificent adventure. Growth is not brought about by frustration. It is not the individual turning away from the world. It is the individual who examines the world and finds its own natural beauties that gradually grows. There are many things in the world that we have to consider as serious, but there are not so many that we have to react to with too much seriousness. It becomes wrong, because growth, the child growing, isn't fighting growth. The people in passing through various stages of life find it's impossible to fight them. All they can do is put them in order and use each period of life as an opportunity for the expression of a great beauty. And it doesn't make any difference whether it is the newborn babe or the centenarian. Beauty is always there. Tremendous values are always there. And the individual who learns to appreciate them does not become an outcast, does not become a cynic. He remains what he always has to be if he wants to grow, and that is ever aware that the mistakes and sorrows and problems of life are all part of the growing pains of human beings. They're there for the individual to transform and transmute by his own consciousness. And there was a belief in antiquity, at least, that no one was ever presented with a problem so great that he couldn't do something about it. That it is not necessary to assume that our problems are so vast that we cannot solve them. Nor is it our responsibility to take on unsolvable problems and try to solve them. The problem is to grow graciously, to try to find the thing that would make the individual today attractive to the younger generation growing up. That the parental attitudes are enlightened, that they are gentle, kindly, thoughtful, unselfish, and yet have within them a strength of discipline. Discipline is the most important thing in the world for the average person, and there is nothing they resent more. Discipline is given in the army, and while it is not a very good cause, we'll accept that, very many of those who have gone through army discipline have become much better people as a result. They have come out of that discipline with the ability to obey commands, ability to do things that are needed to be done, and to do them without efforts to avoid or evade. But anyway, discipline is the thing that we all have to have. And a discipline of a parent for a child must be enlightened. The discipline that we apply to ourselves must be enlightened. We cannot simply blindly swing out at something with an outburst of temper or something of this nature. Discipline has to be gradually gained in the way a musician gains the skill to play an instrument. If he did not practice for years, he could not play it. If the individual doesn't practice self-discipline for years, he will not achieve it. The only way in which some seem to be able to shorten this apprenticeship to discipline is through a mystical religious illumination. Some people who have been very worldly, for instance, St. Francis de Assisi is one of the examples. A person who has been very worldly and has gradually exhausted the possibilities of excess, who has gradually wasted their ownings or their lives or their health, destroyed the relationships with other people, and gone on to a very difficult situation. These people occasionally, on rare occasions, but it does happen, suddenly have an inner awakening. They suddenly see, know, and believe the mistakes that they have made. They also seemingly are the ones who were able to remember a combination of circumstances, remember the details of their own degradation, and at the same time remember the details of the universal plan of salvation. In any event, these people suddenly have an internal enlightenment. This internal enlightenment is something, as several of them have said in attempting to write the explanation, that there is no way of telling what this is. Words completely useless. Those who have it cannot name it, and those who name it haven't got it. Whatever it is a mysterious unfolding of light within their own lives. An enlightenment that forever corrects most of the mistakes which they have made. This enlightenment, which in a sense is a miraculous cleansing of the inside of the cup, where suddenly the individual realizes his true place in the order of things. In the case of St. Francis, we know the story of a tremendous dedication, a story of reaching out towards all things that live. St. Francis preaching to the birds, St. Francis representing pain and sorrow as his brothers and sisters. Everything strangely transformed into a mystic ritual of regeneration. A certain story of that, a similar story, is told in St. John of the Cross.
I'm sure that the last 4 minutes are pretty awesome because Manly Hall's lectures are always awesome. That was really, I guess, the only point that I'd listened to that I really wanted to discuss. And that last part, about those who have it, can't explain it, and those who talk about it don't have it. That enlightenment, that satori, that feeling, that experience. You just don't know. I mean, if you have it or not, but when you do have it, you understand it. And the realization is that you do have a place among the cosmos here, that you don't have to play a game, you don't have to pretend you're someone else, you don't have to act like you're totally confident. You can be just a human. Be a human. It means that you're not trying to attach. That's where non-attachment comes from, the idea that you're not attached to one idea or another. You don't have to find yourself proving yourself, yet at the same time you don't have to always act like you're detached from proving yourself, or that you don't have to be egotistical and you don't have to ditch your ego. You have to just understand that everything is mystical. You begin to see life as a metaphor, as an archetype. And my belief is that the further you go into this, these are the deeper levels of understanding. That the more you begin to understand the universe, and the more the universe will reveal to you. And that it will start to come in symbols, shapes, and ideas. And this is what I've had already so far in my life. And I'm assuming that it will continue. Since there's only 4 minutes left in the lecture, I'm just going to go ahead and play it, because I might as well, because the last 4 minutes of a Manly Hall lecture are usually pretty darn good. So I'll let it play out, and I'm going to go run a couple of errands in the house, and then I'll be back. But I'll be back and forth to listen to part of it, so I can at least discuss it. Manly Hall is one of my favorite speakers of all time.
Many others. But it is a tremendous psychic enlightenment. It is as though a mysterious spiritual bomb had exploded within them and destroyed worldliness. This type of thing doesn't happen to everyone, but it does also come in smaller assignments and arrangements. So against certain retributional processes of life, there is this tremendous dynamic change of life. It is real because the individual no longer is capable of doing the wrong things that he did before. He can no longer go back. It isn't a discipline that he imposes upon himself. It isn't something he says I shouldn't do it. It is something that from the soul of himself he says I can't do it. And once this becomes a solid thing, that the person can no longer break the rules, because suddenly the rules become the most beautiful things in creation. When this happens, of course, the individual has in a sense transcended the long process of gradual self-discipline. And it is therefore perhaps why sometimes the greater sinner becomes the greatest saint. It is something, a revulsion against evil. But we don't always have that. We don't even need it necessarily unless it is next for us. What we really need and what we have to cultivate at all times is this growing realization of the beauty of doing it right. The beauty of no longer permitting the doubts and fears of the personality to interfere with the life of a serene dedication. If we really believe in the divinity that shapes our ends, if we really believe that there is a power beyond our own, a power which is guiding us with love and wisdom forever, we can begin to accept that, and we can write in the little book, today I kept it. Today I had a decision to make and I made it right. Then the next day I tried again but didn't do so well. But gone over a period of time, these records will tell us what we are accomplishing. They will also help us to plan a purpose for our own lives that extends perhaps far beyond the boundaries of the present body. It helps to make us citizens of the universe, and most of all, good citizens. It helps us to become part of that great life which is dedicated to the service of life, to the service of realities, to the service of the divine essence, the divine substance that has been built into us and which we are able to witness. In other words, it is the divine power coming through so that we all become manifestations of the infinite goodness and the infinite love that protects all things. If we begin to feel that way and think that way, little problems will fall away and gradually larger problems will be modified. And if we keep records of what happens when we do it right, we will gradually realize that it is not very profitable to do it wrong. Well, that's all for today, folks.
Well, that's about all I can say. And it wasn't me saying it, but my mind and my heart were right there with him. It's people like Hall that keep me grounded, that I'm not completely alone in this crazy world with some of the thoughts that I have and the ways that I feel. And people start to have these weird experiences in their lives, strange synchronicities, and you can talk to one person that'll say that it's the angels talking to you, another person says it's the devil, another person says it's God, some people say it's loved ones, ancestors, ghosts. Everybody has an idea about what experiences are caused by. And then there's an entire other way of thinking. Well, people say that you're just completely delusional and that your experiences are your own, and that nobody out there is, I guess nobody out there is really having these experiences, that rather it's a complete delusion, that all the individual people who have had spiritual experiences or awakenings have just done something in their brain, short-circuited, rewired, done something to, change the way they think. That's unexplainable, such as sometimes intense psychedelic experiences can do. Or a person who takes ibogaine or iboga and they quit heroin forever, never have a withdrawal. The way that you can rewire your brain in the way it thinks, but to what extent? And my point is that some of these experiences are just too real to deny, and I'm not going to go into detail on my experiences, because I tend to keep my personal spiritual experiences, if you will, to myself, and my UFO experience and the weird things that have happened to me. They're fun stories, but they're just stories. Everybody's got them. What really matters is what have I learned from it, and that's growth. So growth is the most important thing through understanding that you are part of something greater. And if you want to deny that you're part of something greater or that there's a cosmic mind, you're more than welcome to do that, because that's an individual choice. And I would not blame anyone for doing that. You know, that, I guess, the atheist standpoint, if you will. But for me personally, I would rather live deluded, if I so be, and be happy, because I'm much happier when I'm living in this cosmic reality that there are laws to follow, that I follow the laws of truth, that when I do something wrong, I know it, and we know it in our hearts when we do something wrong. So we can piddle-paddle around, but whether the laws are ingrained through genetics or just through some cosmic consciousness, there are certain things that we as humans know are right and know are wrong, and there's no sense pussyfooting around or trying to argue about what's what. Only through wisdom and learning can we understand what these things are, through observing the past, as well as understanding the present and why we are where we're at, and what makes us as individuals upset. You know, we're all doing the best we can. So, have a great evening. Take